Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the Grey Zone with Ali Manzoor, a show where we challenge assumptions, stereotypes, viewpoints on various complex issues, and hopefully foster critical thinking. Today we're going to talk about mental well-being, about stress, anxiety, and so much more. Joining us today is Zaineb Masud. Zaineb is a trained Humanistic Councilor from United Kingdom. She's a certified tiny habits coach, a method to help people decrease anxiety and stress. She's a philosopher and life coach. She also has decades of experience in teaching sociology to A-level students. So Zainab, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for having me.
Acha ji, so I'm going to jump right into it, okay? And we're going to talk about habits today.
Sure.
I'm going to start with a quote that is attributed to Aristotle, which is, we are what we repeatedly do. At a personal level, what guiding principle do you live by when it comes to growth, behavioral change, and how is behavioral change different from habit change?
And you used the two keywords for me, Aristotle and repeatedly. Keywords because philosophy is what I studied for 8 years. The major was psychology, and eventually the main thrust of my attention became habit work. And you said repeatedly, so what I have learned at this old age to live by is the benefit of repetition. Sounds like a mundane word, but it's so interesting that that's what you started with. And the person that I trained under, BJ Fogg, who's a scientist at Stanford, he talks about adopting behaviors and habits through tiny steps which involve studious repetition. So my mantra would be to focus on the small, to focus on the tiny. The bigger your focus, the more confused you can get, and make life easy for yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you then, what is the difference between behavioral change and habit change?
So I would say that habit change is very much a part of behavioral change. Consider it perhaps a subset. If I'm talking about the kind of behavioral coaching training that I got, that behavioral design as expounded by BJ Fogg, that's very much about working on habits and behaviors to adopt a more impactful way of behavior design. So to make your behavior beneficent, effective for yourself, you work on habits. So there's a key correlation, especially in terms of the work that I do.
World Health Organization calls stress a health epidemic of the 21st century. Anxiety disorders affect 1 in 4 people at some point in their lives. With terms like digital fatigue, burnout becoming common, how relevant is habit coaching today?
Oh gosh. So, Ali, I'm based in Seattle, and because I work on Zoom, I get to see people all over. And I think the primary concern that they come with is anxiety. So, the way the Tiny Habits method works, which is what I'm trained in, is that one of BJ's first steps is something called the swarm of bees. So, if anyone at home has a white paper, so by swarm of bees, he does not mean the insect, he means behavior. So
Okay.
what that means is that in the cloud, I ask prospective coachees or clients to write down their goal.
Okay.
So when people come to me, as you understand, I don't do trauma work because I'm working as a behavioral coach. Behavioral coaching involves coming with goals. Sometimes there's more than one. But most often, the goal that people come with is that how to lessen anxiety. So it's key.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask you something. Do
Yeah.
people come to you for habits or for
I
relief?
think they
then?
come to me for relief. And what some of them are aware of is that it's going to involve habit change. And some are not aware that my work, my speciality is habit change. So in some cases, like I was communicating with a prospective client a couple of days ago, and she explained her situation, and I said, I work on behavioral change. She said, that's what I need. But a lot of people are not aware of what habit change, what anchoring, behavioral work means. So they come and say, I'm stressed because I have issues with a relationship with my husband, my child, my colleagues. I don't know what to do.
Okay, so in the year 2000, the average attention span was 12 seconds. Today, it's almost 8 seconds. Coming from a background of philosophy, positive psychology, and humanistic counseling, attention spans are shrinking as our interactions with books is also. So, how important is knowledge and perspective in helping people decipher the right from wrong?
So, Ali, that's a real conundrum because the problem is that social media, right? Instagram, the growth and the way that it has engulfed, especially the younger population, has created a huge issue with concentration. A lot of young people who, currently I have a few young people that I'm speaking with. By young, I mean between the ages of 19 and 23. Attention span
Shrinking?
is shrinking like crazy. Social media has much to do with it. The addiction to swiping, to scrolling. I mean, I'm talking about young people, but even people close to my age, so to speak, that kind of addiction has hugely impacted our ability to concentrate. So I'm not surprised that concentration span is shrinking, and knowledge is perspective is key, like you asked, to habit formation, Ali.
It's ADHD as well?
Well, it definitely, I mean, to some extent, I feel we all have ADHD. To some extent, I think it's a spectrum, but this accelerates those issues.
Okay, so I'm going to quote James Clear. James Clear said that people don't rise to the level of their goals, they fall to the level of their systems. So, what is it about tiny habits approach that resonated with you both personally and professionally?
Mm. So, personally, I found them an extremely kind and warm group of people. Like I said, BJ Fogg is a scientist. He has a behavioral lab at Stanford, and he has coached many, many people by now. His theory being tiny is mighty, and do adopt habits and behaviors that you like to do. Don't force yourself. So, what appealed to me was the inherent positivity in their system. It's not a negative system. There's a lot of warmth and there's a lot of compassion for the individual soul, i.e., the idea is to work on what is easy for you. And BJ also feels that, big parts of behavior change are ability and motivation. But motivation is the least reliable of vectors. Like, I don't know about you, but if I wait to be motivated to exercise, I'm the opposite of my husband. He runs, he walks, he swims. I just want to watch Netflix when I have time. I don't like to do exercise. So if I relied on motivation, I would never do it. And when you speak to people who say, get motivated, that felt heavy because I was not motivated to do a lot of things that were good for me. But through the tiny habits method, I realized don't look at motivation, look at your ability
Okay.
and look at prompts. And by prompts, there's a system of anchoring. So you adopt a tiny behavior by attaching it to an already existing behavior. I can give you an example if you want.
Please do.
So people who don't like to floss, you're in a rush. And this is one of BJ's favorite tiny habit recipes. So the tiny habit recipes is A, B, C. Anchor is something you do every day.
Okay.
Behavior is the new thing you're trying to start. And celebration, I want to talk a little about that, is how you then feel good about it. So anchor would be after I brush my teeth. Let's assume that most people we know brush their teeth. So anchor is after I brush my teeth, रोज हम करते हैं. Behavior is I will floss 2 teeth. So you're not asked to floss you floss 2 teeth and then you will celebrate in some time. You will say, yep, I did it. I remembered.
Okay.
Another habit which has worked for many of my clients is called, BJ calls it the Maui habit. So after you get out of bed in the morning, God willing, we all get out of bed in the morning, your feet touch the ground and you say out loud, it's going to be a great day.
Okay.
So The anchor is I get out of bed. So that's something
Okay.
जो हम रोज करते हैं.
Huh.
The behavior is it's going to be a great day. And what does that do? That rewires the positivity in
The
your
positive affirmation, the positive manifestation of some
Exactly.
sort.
It's
Okay.
called neuroplasticity.
Okay.
Is the belief that we can rewire our brains. And Ali, I can't tell you the number of people who I talked to who didn't understand that it is possible to rewire the way we think and feel.
Really?
So don't start with the feeling, start with the habit. जैसे आपने शुरू किया था, the first question you asked me was Aristotle and
Yes.
repetition.
Yes.
Repeat it daily for at least 3 weeks and see how that impacts.
Okay, so if I was to sum up your work, it would be an intersection of habit support, anxiety reduction, and healthier relationships. How do these themes show up in your life?
I always thought that I was not an anxious person. But as I have aged, I've realized that I am an anxious person. I'm just not a very aggressive person in the sense I don't let it doesn't come out in a loud way, but it comes back in an internal way. And that for me has resulted in several autoimmune conditions. So I want to share this with people because I want to be able to help and to say that if you're not careful about anxiety, it can create medical conditions. So I thought I wasn't anxious, but apparently I am an anxious person.
Okay.
And I feel that, it's now playing up in my muscles and my fatigue. So I'm trying to be careful about that. Habit work helps in the sense it helps me to be more careful about my diet. I haven't been very disciplined about diet, but the Tiny Habits method, being coached as a behavioral coach, and of course, the work as a humanistic therapist as well, has taught me that I can train myself. So I now eat healthier in the morning, in the sense, the anchor being after I brush my teeth, I will put the tea kettle on and I will do 5 squats.
Okay.
Right? So I
Really?
start off with a little bit of exercise. Otherwise, I never do the squats. But it's
Okay.
tied to an anchor now.
A University College London study found that habit formation ranges from 18 to 254 days. Some sources say it's 21 to 30 days. So, what are the realistic timelines in terms of expectations when changing behavior?
So, in terms of the tiny habits method, and when I'm talking about things like neuroplasticity, it's going saying out loud positive affirmations. I generally tell people, please try it for at least 21 to 30 days. So that's the second thing you said. And you're absolutely right. That's what I'm impressed by your research. That's what I tell people.
Huh.
Does it work for everyone? Not 100%. Does it work for most people that I've worked with? Yes. So celebration is a key part of the tiny habits method, right? We have anchor, something you do every day. We have the behavior you're adopting. Then we have celebrate, give
Okay.
yourself that what BJ calls feeling of shine
Okay.
that helps to rewire. So when I've spoken about this at length with clients, they say it's because we weren't really taught to celebrate, which I find a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah.
तो एक तो वो है, but then the contradiction is that as children, I think and that's another topic, you are taught shame more than applause. You are taught this is wrong more than good job, I think we need to understand the difference between shame and guilt. Shame is when you attack character instead of the action. And there's a good book called, I think it's Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. उसमें ये है कि just be careful about your language. And exactly what you said, it's true. Not that you should envelop them in hugs when they're tethering on, terrible behaviors. No, but point out actions rather than character. And don't make it shame based.
Zainab, I really want to thank you for coming. You found time. You're on such a strict timeline today in
No.
Karachi, but you found time to come to my show. I'm really, really grateful. I hope that the next time you're visiting, maybe we can have you again.
Oh,
Or
thank
maybe we
you.
can have you over Zoom or some Google link or something and also have you here talk again.
Thank you, Ali. I'm very impressed with your research. I did see your show before I came on because, as you know, I'm running from pillar to post. When I saw your show, I thought, this is something that I really want to do. And to everyone, anyone listening, please believe in the power of changing your habit. You can do it. Look up the tiny habits method. Look up BJ Fogg. Start small.
That was it for the Grey Zone with Ali Manzoor this week. Until next week, stay curious, stay critical, and keep asking questions because between the black and the white lies the grey.